Hello, welcome to another edition of the Sarcastic School Teacher. So I hope you're all well. Hope you're all staying indoors. I know I am. It's pretty much what I do now. Apart from walking my dog twice a day. So today we're going to do Follower from the Anthology by Seamus Heaney. So get your anthology if you've got one, or get a copy of the poem so you can read along. And we're going to do unfamiliar vocabulary, and then we're going to do the story of the poem. What the words that we don't understand, and then the story. That's what we're going to do today in the comfort of our own homes. Okay, so I'm going to read the poem first, have a little chat about my man Seamus. It's not Seamus, by the way, Seamus. He's Irish. Yeah, that was terrible. Sorry about that. I'll never do that again. So I'm going to read the poem Follower. Quick chat about him. Define unfamiliar vocabulary. Then we're going to do the story. And then we can all go eat crisps. Okay. Are you ready? Following along. Ha 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 ha. Following along. Do you get it? Okay. Here we go. Follower. My father worked with a horse plough. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. The horses strained at his clicking tongue. An expert. He would set the wing and fit the bright steel-pointed sock. The sod rolled over without breaking at the headrig with a single pluck of reins. The sweating team turned round and back into the land. His eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow exactly. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, fell sometimes on the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. I wanted to grow up and plough, to close one eye, stiffen my arm. All I ever did was follow in his broad shadow round the farm. I was a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping always. But today it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. So this is a great poem. It might be a tricky one for some of you to understand in the 21st century world where, it's all TikTok and Snapchat and all of those lols. And all this talk of ploughing and head rigs and bright steel-pointed socks. You're probably thinking, what is all of this? But it's just as relevant to all of us today. This whole poem about the relationship between a child and their parent, father and son, is completely relevant to all of us. So Seamus Heaney is one of our most famous poets, Irish poet, and this is widely understood to be an autobiographical poem about his own life, his own childhood, growing up in Ireland, in agricultural Ireland. This is not the world of TikTok, guys. This is the world of farmers and ploughing and working the fields. And that's the life he lived, and that's the childhood he had, and this is what this poem is about. So let's have a little think about some of the unfamiliar vocabulary. Before I define some, your job, interactive, is have a look at the poem right now and pick out some words that you don't understand. Some words that you just don't understand. I'm going to write them down. I'm just going to explain them with my voice. It takes a long time to write it all down. And I've already drawn quite a lot of stick people today, including drawing a horse, which took me about an hour to get it right. You can thank me later. So we're going to pick out some unfamiliar vocabulary. I'll talk you through it. You are going to have to note stuff down. Listen with your ears and note it down. Okay, have you got any words? You need to have words. What are the words that you would like to be defined? And I've picked the ones that I think you're going to pick with my super psychic, sarcastic school teacher powers. Okay, are you ready? So, the first one I think you might have picked out is when it says between the shafts, or the shafts, depending on how you pronounce it. So in this poem, shafts, noun, It's part of a plough. This is part of a plough. And if we don't know what a plough is, in a minute, when I go through the story properly, you will see my little drawings. But a plough is what you pull through a field to plough it so you can plant the seeds. Today we have huge mechanical vehicles that do this, but back in the days, you didn't. You had to attach it to horses and they would pull it through the field, and a shaft is part of a plough. And that's what the father is doing in this poem. He's ploughing. Okay, what else have you got on your list? What else have you got for 10 points? Have you got furrow? Another noun. What's a furrow? What's a furrow, do we think? So the furrow is when the plough is pulled across the ground. Obviously it makes a trench in the ground. It pulls through, the plough pulls through, and it cuts a trench into the ground. Like so, if you're looking at it cross-section, and that's obviously what you put the seeds into. So it pulls along and makes that trench. It's just the furrow. It's just what the seeds go into when the plough has made that trench. Okay, what's next? I bet you're not quite sure what steel-pointed sock is. So this doesn't mean in the poem that he's wearing metal socks, although that sounds cool. Again, steel-pointed sock is another part of the plough. And in a minute, I'll show you it more specifically. But the steel-pointed sock is the piece of metal. It's the piece of metal that is dragged through the ground. Horse here, ropes here, farmer here, and the horse is dragging this contraption through the ground. And the steel-pointed sock is this sharp piece of metal that is dragged through the ground, and it makes the furrow, makes that little ditch in the ground that we're going to plant the seeds in. Okay, what else? Oh, this is also noun. Okay, any other words? Any other words? Any other requests? Oh, what do I hear from the back? Is it head rig? Well, okay then. Okay, so head rig. So head rig is another noun. So the head rig is the place in the field where the horses have to turn around. Because if you think of the field, bird's eye view, okay? You're now a bird. Well done. So looking down onto the field, and the farmer's here, and here's the travelling path of him with the plough. They go up like this, but then what's he going to do? Keep ploughing ahead forever? No, because obviously you need to plough the whole field. So the head rig is this point here, where it has to turn around in like 180 degrees, a really tight turn. So this is essentially how you plough. You know, so this is you and your horse going up and down the field like this. And this point here, where you have to get the horses to turn around in a really tight 180 degree turn, is called the head rig. Now, I'm allergic to horses, so I can't go anywhere near them because they give me a face like a puffed up pumpkin. But if you've ever been horse riding, they're pretty difficult to control. So having to be able to get horses, plural, to turn around at that point at the head rig, that's a pretty big deal. Okay, what else have we got? Did you pick out sod? Another noun. The sod is this. The sod is the earth. Sod is the ground, soil. If it's in little clumps, it's called like sods sometimes, but it basically means the earth. It basically means the soil. I mean, this is all obviously all to do with agriculture, ploughing, farming. That's what his father did. So there's all this technical terminology here to really reinforce the importance of this tradition, this agricultural tradition. It's very important in Ireland for his heritage, his legacy, his background, his childhood. He hasn't just thrown these in for fun or to really confuse GCSE kids. And in many, many decades, when you're old and grey, and you might be writing a poem about your childhood and talking about things like TikTok, I promise kids then will think, what is that? From the olden days, that'll be like in virtual reality, you know, plugged into the matrix, and that will seem like something so old, and what is that? And that's the same thing we have to remember when we look at these poems, where we think, what, ploughing, farming, sods, shafts, what are you talking about? It's all part of human existence and human experience, and it was very much relevant to the poet when he was growing up. And that's what we have to learn about it and appreciate it. Also, history, important. Okay, what else have we got? Did you pick out hobnailed? Did you pick out hobnailed? Now, hobnailed here is an adjective, and it means when something is nailed together. And the dad in the poem is wearing these hobnailed boots, like so. Imagine these are like the tops of nails, and he's literally got boots that have been nailed together. That's how tough your boots had to be, because you're going to be walking through fields all the livelong day. He's not wearing them very well. He needs lessons on how to wear boots, clearly. But that describes the father's boots. Okay. Any more? Did you pick out plod? Plod is a verb. What does it mean? So it's a way of walking. It's very steady, a slow, steady way of walking. Often it's like you're walking slowly but surely, plodding along. You're not running. It's quite heavy. This is how he saw his father walking, with these very sure, steady, quite heavy steps. And last but not least, he says yapping, which is what he's doing. In fact, I'll try and put it here. Sorry, it's getting a bit crowded. Yapping, to yap. Another verb. What does yapping mean? In the poem, he describes himself as yapping. Yapping is quite a high-pitched, shrill noise. You would normally use it to describe like a little animal, like a little chihuahua, like a little dog. That's yapping. He's not a dog. It's just describing the noise he made when he was this little child. Okay, so that's unfamiliar vocabulary. Going to rub it out, so say bye-bye. Then we're going to do the story of the poem. And then next time, we will play the picture game. So I'm going to have to get rid of, in fact, I'm just going to get rid of all of this. Bye-bye. Really trying not to push this whiteboard that I have on a table onto the floor. That's why it's wobbling around. Okay. That'll do. It's not very clean, but we'll have to live with it. Okay, lovely. Okay, so we're going to do the story of the poem. We're going to do the story. So we need to have our ground back again. This is our field. Remember, the story of the poem is the speaker, Seamus Heaney, the son, is talking mostly about when he was a little boy and his father was ploughing. So let's have a look at the poem again. My father worked with a horse plough. Okay, my father worked with a horse plough. Oh, a horse, you say? This is my horse. I drew it. And anyone who knows me knows I can't draw. So there's no fancy graphics here in these videos. Soz. It's just me and a whiteboard and some whiteboard pens and stuff I've drawn and cut out. So, be grateful. Okay, so here's a horse. Its name is Betty. I don't really know why. There needs to be more than one horse, okay? In the poem, there's actually a team. It says a team, but I wasn't going to draw 5 horses. So it's just the one horse times 5 or 4. Okay, so here's a horse, but he says a horse plough. My father worked with a horse plough. Oh, here's a plough that I've also drawn. Like so. Horse, where's the horse plough? Like this. Okay, so the plough is like this, do you see? These are ropes. Here's the steel pointed sock, and that's what the horse is going to drag through the ground, and it makes the furrow the seeds go in. That's how you plough, and that's how you plough a field ready for your crops. So here's the father in the poem. Here he is. He's going to be holding onto his plough. One arm won't reach the plough. That's what's going to have to do. The horse apparently is flying through the air. Fantastic. Okay, so that's going to have to do. Okay, so here we go. Here's what happens in the poem. My father worked with a horse plough. Here he is. So he's blue tacked to the board now. So here we go, like so. My father worked with a horse plough, and this is what it meant. Here's the dad and he's guiding the horses through the field, like so. My father worked with a horse plough. His shoulders globed, his shoulders really rounded, because this takes a lot of effort. This takes a lot of effort to be able to guide these horses through the field. Between the shaft and the furrow, the horses strained at his clicking tongue. That, I can't really do it properly, that noise, you know, it's like a noise that they make to talk to the horses, to tell them what to do. He was communicating with the horses, and the horses were like, okay, we'll do as you say. An expert, he would set the wing, fit the bright steel pointed sock, this, so he could put everything together. He could put everything together. An expert, he was brilliant at it. The admiring tone in the poem is when the speaker, Seamus Heaney, was a little boy, he was obviously full of admiration for his father's skill. Then it says, the sod rolled over without breaking at the head rig. Remember, the head rig is the edge of the field where they have to make a 180-degree turn and turn back round. So then they would go like this, and then the horses have got to turn around. They can't have them just wandering off into the field. So he would manage to get them to go. I mean, I didn't bother to colour in the other side because I didn't. Like so, and he would just manage to get them to do that, and they would be able to do that pattern, that skill, to get those horses to turn around, a team of horses to turn around at the edge of a field in 180 degrees. That is skill. And that's what the father would do when the speaker was little. And then it said, his eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow. So there's his eye narrowed and angled. That's my drawing of it, like so. And he was really able to look exactly at the ground. He could map it. I don't know about you, but if I tried to plough a field, my ploughing, this is what my ploughing would look like. If I tried to plough a field, it would be like, this is where we'd end up. Also my allergies. But he didn't. He knew exactly where to take those horses, to lead those horses, because he was an expert. He was so skilled. And the son obviously he looked with admiration. He looked up to him. He like idolized him. And then now at this point, the speaker, his son, Seamus Heaney, the speaker, makes an appearance in the poem. Here he is. He's quite small. I realised how small I've drawn him. It says, I stumbled in his hobnailed wake. So we get this idea of the son was following him. Dad, Dad, I'm busy, son, being a farmer and doing farmery type things. No, Dad, Dad. I stumbled, kept falling over. Oh no, I've fallen over, my head's in the ground. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, his boots. So the son would follow him, you know, metaphorically, but also figuratively, being a follower, wanting to follow in his father's footsteps. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, hobnailed boots. He was following in his father's footsteps literally, but also thinking about doing it metaphorically. He was stumbling, he was falling over. So he obviously didn't think he was good enough. He looked up to his father, but there's a sense that he thought he was inferior when he was a child. And it said, fell sometimes. Oh no, I've fallen. And then it says, sometimes he rode me on his back. I love this. And sometimes the father picked him up and was like, okay, son. And he rode him on his back like this, carried him, supported him. So it's really some lovely imagery. And then he said, I wanted to grow up and plough. I want to be like you, Dad. To close one eye, stiffen my arm. All I ever did was follow in his broad shadow. All he ever did was follow him round the farm. Da-da-da, here he goes. I'm still following you. All he ever did was follow him. In the air, apparently. Come back down. There we go. Followed him everywhere. But it says I was a nuisance. Obviously, he remembers being a child, and he thinks to himself, I was just annoying, always there, following him around, getting under his feet. You know, my dad had important work to do, and there I was yapping. It says I was a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping. Dad, hey, Dad. That's how he saw himself when he was a little kid. His dad was like some kind of god to him, like a legend. And then there's that last bit of the poem. Then there's the last part of the poem. This is all in past tense. This is all a memory of childhood, idolizing a parent, looking up to a parent, admiring a parent, wanting to follow them in their footsteps. But he obviously didn't. Seamus Heaney did not grow up to be a farmer. He's a poet. He was a poet. He didn't follow in his father's footsteps at all. And then off they go, back into the past. And then it's present day at the end of the poem. It's present day in the last 2 lines. They are, well, pretty heartbreaking. The last lines say, "It is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away." The role reversal. Here's the speaker today. And if you can see his expression. And then he talks about, "It is my father." So now he's grown up. He's grown up. And his strong father who had those strong, the shoulders globed, who was an expert and so strong and carried him on his back, is an old man. He's an old man. Keeps stumbling behind me. The speaker's father, who was that really strong farmer, has grown old, as we all will do. This is natural. It's just an old man, stumbling. But what he says at the end is quite heartbreaking, and keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. It's almost like now his father is following him. His father is the burden. His father is the hindrance. He thought he was the burden when he was a little boy, and now this role reversal, this cyclical structure, and at the end of the poem he becomes the father is the follower, needing the son, and the son has this tone of irritation and annoyance at the end of the poem. But it's kind of honest. It's an honest poem to express the idea that maybe his feeling that his father has become a burden. He's kind of annoyed. He's annoyed with his old, aged, frail, needy father, when he was also needy when he was a child. So yeah, it's a great poem. And don't get too much hung up on thinking you have to understand a culture to do with agriculture and ploughing. I mean, it's very important to know about these things, but don't think that doesn't mean the poem that you can't relate to it, because we all can, about being children, feeling a bit useless, wanting to be like our parents but not being able to be like them because we're just children. And then as we grow older, we become the adult, and eventually, when we are older, our parents are still alive, we may have to parent them. So there's all kinds of stuff happening in this poem. It's a great poem. So simply because it took me so long to make it, I'm just going to bring these back in. So this is the past, but this was the past. I might even do like a little so this was the past when he was following his father, and now we've got the present day, and his father is following him. He sees his father as the burden. He used to see himself as the burden. Very good. Good poem. Thanks, Seamus. So that's the story of Follower. Hope that helped. Next time we'll do the picture game. We've just done quite a lot of analysis and discussion of the meaning of the poem, so we crammed a lot in. That was fun. I like my horse, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty good. So yeah, hope that helped. Take care. Have a good day. Really do stay indoors, stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you again another time. It's not going to be my face, I'm afraid, people, it's just this. I'll see you again for another lesson. Another quarantine lesson. Ciao, bellas.